In the center of the Androxus sector, a place known across the stars for its golden nebulae and spiraling energy clouds, the Grand Assembly of Empires had gathered for the Tri-Council War Games, a prestigious event held once every 50 cycles, where the galaxy's strongest civilizations came together to show off their most powerful ships and technologies. This was not a battle of war, but a display of dominance, of strategy, and of pride. Giant space stations floated like silent giants, and fleets surrounded them in patterns that shimmered like constellations. Warships from across the Orion Arm had arrived, some shaped like daggers, some like beasts of old myths, all covered in glowing shields and energy weapons that could burn moons. The Kraviks brought their world splitter, a ship 3 kilometers long with a core that hummed with barely contained fury. The Zarnathi, tall beings made of silver scales and pride, boasted a new vessel with cloaking tech so advanced it looked like it disappeared mid-flight. The Drellin Dominion, always loud and confident, had 20 ships in formation, each one armed to the teeth. Delegates floated in the transparent galleries of the main station, watching and whispering about what they expected to see. And then, through the misty edges of the arrival gate, came a small ship barely larger than a freighter, smooth and round, colored a dull gray with no visible weapons or symbols of power. It was the HSS Dauntless, Earth's first official entry into the War Games. The laughter began almost immediately. "Is that a diplomatic shuttle?" sneered one Zarnathi weapons officer, his voice carrying through the hall. A group of Kraviks officers chuckled loudly, some shaking their heads. "Perhaps they came to observe, not compete," said another. Even the neutral observers, those who had seen countless technologies and wars, looked surprised. Humanity, a relatively young species on the galactic stage, had been expected to bring something modest, but not something so underwhelming. There were no massive engines glowing at the back of the ship, no spiked armor or external weapons. It was sleek, in a way that made it look more like a courier ship than anything meant for combat. Aboard the Dauntless, Commander Alara Voss stood at the central viewing panel, her posture calm, her expression unreadable. She watched the incoming data, the transmissions from the other fleets, and the mocking commentary flooding the general channels. She had expected this. The Terran Defense Fleet had prepared her for it. Voss wasn't here to impress anyone with size or flair. She was here to deliver a message, one that could only be understood in time. The crew around her worked quietly, all of them focused, each knowing exactly what the ship could do and how little the others understood. The Dauntless gave off no threats, no warnings, and no sense of danger, and that was the point. Outside. In the assembly's grand halls, holograms of each ship rotated slowly for the audience. When the Dauntless appeared, it got the smallest reaction: raised brows, amused smiles, whispers. Someone even joked that it looked like something a child might design in a simulator. But beneath that plain hull, unknown to every empire present, was something that did not exist in any known record, something no other ship had. The Singularity Core, a human breakthrough so dangerous, so strange that even Earth had kept it a secret from its closest allies. Commander Voss placed her hand on the ship's interface. The core pulsed once, soft blue light rippling across the console. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of the ship, feeling the calm before the storm. Out there, the strongest fleets in the galaxy were waiting to show their power. They had lasers that could punch through asteroids, drones with artificial minds, shields that adapted to every kind of weapon. And they all believed humanity had brought a science ship, or at best, a hopeful experiment. But none of them knew the truth. The Dauntless was not built to match their weapons. It was built to end the conversation in one move. Voss looked up at the screen again. A new message appeared. Her ship was scheduled to compete in the final round of the games. Fitting humanity had always been underestimated, from the first time they sent colony ships into deep space. To their quiet rise in the Terran belt, they had no empire, no ancient technology, no mighty bloodlines. But they had something far more dangerous: the ability to think differently. And now, in the heart of the galaxy, the stage was set for everyone to witness what that truly meant. The laughter outside continued, but it was softer now, almost uncertain. As the Dauntless slowly rotated in its docking bay, as still as a moon in orbit, A quiet presence settled around it. Not threatening, not aggressive, just patient, waiting, watching, ready, and behind its silent hull. Behind the calm face of Commander Alara Voss, humanity's true strength waited in the dark, not to impress, but to change everything. The Tricouncil. War games began with thunder and spectacle as warships from across the galaxy unleashed their finest weapons in dazzling shows of destruction. Massive dreadnoughts floated through asteroid fields, firing beams that turned solid rock into glowing dust. Plasma torpedoes arced like falling stars, slamming into simulated colony domes and erupting into brilliant flashes, danced between invisible lines, flickering in and out of existence as if playing hide-and-seek with light itself. Gravity weapons, twisted metal and space alike, dragging targets into crushing singularities, while AI-commanded ships moved with machine precision, outmaneuvering threats with flawless calculation. Each round was louder than the last, each empire determined to prove their dominance. Spectators from thousands of species cheered, analyzed, and judged. In private halls, bets were placed. Experts debated which fleet had shown the most promise. Through it all, one ship remained completely silent, the HSS Dauntless. It sat in the outer ring, never moving, never firing, its sensors simply watching as the galaxy performed its violent ballet. Other crews mocked it openly. Perhaps they forgot how to turn it on. One Zarnathi captain laughed. Some thought it a bluff. Others assumed technical failure. A few more, like the thoughtful Lorati ambassador, approached Commander Alara Voss directly with quiet concern. "Withdraw," the Lorati whispered, his voice low and kind. "Your people need not be remembered this way. Even the wisest know when to step aside." Voss didn't respond with offense. She simply smiled, a calm, almost warm smile that carried no arrogance, only quiet confidence. She turned away from the viewing deck, eyes focused now on the timer. The final round was approaching. This was humanity's only turn. Every other fleet had competed across 10 simulations, varied trials of fire meant to test precision, speed, and raw firepower. They included decoy fleets flying in randomized formations, a digital reconstruction of a heavily populated city planet, and a final wave of unknown hostiles, designed to be unpredictable, aggressive, and fast. Most fleets had taken hours to finish the full sequence. Even the strongest empires had stumbled, needing backup systems and second tries. The Kravik's flagship destroyed 90% of the targets, but accidentally triggered a civilian kill zone, resulting in penalty. Zarnathi fleet aced the decoy test, but failed to destroy the last group of hostiles. The Drellin Dominion brute-forced their way through it all, leaving debris fields and simulated civilian deaths in their wake. And then the Dauntless was called forward. Silence fell across the command stations. Delegates leaned in, curious now, not out of respect, but curiosity, the kind born from watching something strange, like a puzzle with missing pieces. The Dauntless floated forward. It did not extend weapon pods. It did not deploy drones. It did not charge shields. The display showed targets being generated 10 separate fleets in high-speed formations. A complete replica of the city planet. Helior Prime and the unknown hostiles beginning their assault run. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Most watching assumed the Dauntless would at least try. At the very least, perhaps a slow defensive scan or a withdrawal. 7, 6, 5. Still no movement. No energy surge. No weapons drawn. 4, 3, 2, then fire. But there was no flash, no roar, no visible projectile. A center of the Dauntless's core, a faint pulse of azure light shimmered across its hull, barely visible even on the magnified feeds. It was soft, silent, and lasted less than a second. And then, stillness. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. The audience waited for the real attack to begin. Oh, perhaps that was just calibration, some assumed. Or maybe a sensor ping. But then, someone gasped. A technician in the Drellin command bay shouted that their sensors had gone blind. A Kravik's officer froze, eyes wide. One by one, data feeds lit up with urgent flashes. The screen showing the 10 decoy fleets blinked and showed empty space. The city planet display. gone. Not destroyed, just not there anymore. No fragments, no rubble. Not even vapor, just black.
Oh.
The simulation scanners began to rerun diagnostics. Observers murmured. In confusion, the system had recorded the targets, then instantly they had vanished. No delay, no time lag. No trace. Run it again, an administrator ordered, her voice trembling. The computers reran the destruction log. The results came back identical. Total target elimination. Time to completion. 0.73 seconds. Energy used. Minimal. Collateral. None. The unknown hostiles never got the chance to move. They were gone before the simulation recorded their first strike. A chill crept across the Wargames command center. Even those who had laughed earlier said nothing now. HSS Dauntless stood. Still, its engines quiet, its presence suddenly terrifying. It had fired once. Once. No sound, no boom, no buildup. And with that one silent pulse, it had done what no other empire had even dreamed possible. Not a display of power, but of precision. So complete, so absolute, that the galaxy couldn't even recognize the attack until after it was over. Commander Voss simply sat back in her chair, watching the silent reaction across 1,000 screens. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Because in that moment, the galaxy understood something it had never believed before. Humanity was not here to compete. They were here to change the rules. The aftermath of the Dauntless's silent strike rippled across the Androxus sector like a quiet storm. No sirens blared, no alarms sounded. Every war council, every admiral, and every observer felt the weight of what had happened. It wasn't just destruction, it was a statement. And it left behind more questions than answers. As the Dauntless slowly returned to the docking ring, other commanders scrambled to explain the impossible. Some claimed it was a trick, an illusion meant to fool sensors. Others argued it was an illegal simulation hack until the Tri-Council's own systems confirmed the data. No tampering, no error. Everything the Dauntless touched had been wiped out instantly, with zero energy signature left behind. The technology didn't make sense. No known weapon could act across that scale, with that level of accuracy, using so little power. And yet it had happened. Rumors exploded like wildfire. Some believed humanity had discovered a new form of energy, something beyond plasma, beyond quantum, maybe even beyond reality itself. Others whispered darker theories that Earth had stolen forbidden tech from fallen empires or ancient ruins. But no one truly knew. All they had was silence and fear. Commander Alara Voss became the center of it all, though she gave no interviews and made no speeches. She declined invitations to diplomatic dinners, ignored demands for weapon specifications, and never once explained how the Dauntless had done what it did. We came in peace, she simply told the Tri-Council, her tone even and calm. We still do. But peace didn't feel like what the galaxy was witnessing. It felt like the calm before something no one could predict. Back on the Zarnathi dreadnought, Admiral Krell watched the simulation footage over and over again, pausing at the exact frame where the pulse of blue light shimmered from the Dauntless. It doesn't even make a sound, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. What kind of weapon kills without announcing itself? No one answered. Even the Zarnathi war minds had no suggestion. On the Drellin side, Supreme Strategist Orvac demanded analysis. Find me something. Heat trail, spatial distortion, anything. But their best minds came back with nothing. The pulse left no residue, no radiation, no indication of its origin. It was like the ship had whispered across reality, and reality had simply obeyed. In the Larati archives, ancient war records were pulled from deep vaults, searching for any mention of such power. All came up blank. Humanity had done something new or something forgotten. And the silence around their success only made it more terrifying. Delegates from lesser worlds, those not aligned with the major empires, began to flock toward Earth's embassy ships. They saw strength in the Dauntless. Not just military might, but protection, possibility. For the first time in generations, a new player had appeared, one that didn't bow to tradition or show off with explosions and flashy tech. Humanity had whispered into the void, and the void had listened. And still, the Dauntless did not move. It remained docked, quiet as ever. Yet its presence was now heavier than any dreadnought in orbit. Security patrols increased around it, not because it was dangerous, but because no one knew how dangerous it really was. The Tri-Council held emergency meetings in private. Some demanded sanctions on Earth for unregulated weapons testing. Others wanted to invite humanity into the Council, hoping to contain them with politics and diplomacy. But behind every suggestion, one truth lingered in silence. None of them wanted to fight the Dauntless. Not now, not ever. The crew of the Dauntless, trained and disciplined, continued their routines as if nothing had changed. They laughed in the mess hall, reviewed sensor logs, and cleaned the same untouched weapon consoles. To them, this was just the beginning. Revealed one capability, and even that, barely. Behind sealed bulkheads, buried deep in the Dauntless's core systems, there were other technologies still hidden. Protocols, with code names like Event Glass, Echolance, and Planar Weave. Voss had only authorized the first protocol. She hadn't needed the rest. Not yet. Outside, the galaxy watched. Spies attempted to infiltrate, but were intercepted before they even reached the outer airlocks. Hackers tried to breach the ship's firewall, only to be blocked by AI that didn't leave traces. It erased the attacker's systems entirely. And all the while Voss watched from her command chair, her hands folded calmly in her lap, her eyes thoughtful. She had served Earth for over 2 decades. She had seen the arrogance of older empires. She had trained in secret with tools humanity had developed far from alien eyes. And now she sat aboard the ship that no one dared approach, knowing full. Well, what came next? The Dauntless had fired once, and the galaxy had listened. But the real message wasn't about firepower. It was about understanding. If one pulse could erase a fleet, what else could humanity do if pushed? The galaxy did. Not remain quiet for long. After the Dauntless's display, a deep unease settled across the Androxus sector like a silent fog. Though no weapons were fired and no wars declared, every faction began to move beneath the surface. Secret meetings were held in darkened chambers. Fleets were quietly shifted to hidden systems. Words like containment, prevention, and preemptive action were whispered behind closed doors. Humanity had shown something too powerful, too strange, and too silent. And where understanding ends, fear begins. On the surface, the Tri-Council maintained polite diplomacy. They praised Earth's impressive achievement and invited Voss to speak at the closing ceremony. But beneath the smiles, panic stirred. The Zarnathi prepared a shadow fleet of cloaked vessels equipped with experimental null fields. The Drellin's authorized Project Echo Disruptor last resort pulse meant to fracture quantum weapons before they could fire. Even the peaceful Larati began reinforcing their homeworld's planetary shields. But Earth wasn't blind. Commander Alara Voss knew the signs. Surveillance drones detected strange patterns in communications. Energy scans caught the faint trace of stealth ships lingering at the edge of long-range sensors.
Someone, perhaps?
Several someones was planning something. She knew exactly what kind of plan it would be. They wouldn't risk a direct attack. No one would dare strike the Dauntless head-on, not after what they'd seen. But a trap? A carefully crafted scenario? That was possible. She reviewed her options in silence. The ship's AI, Sentinel-9, began calculating responses for every possible ambush location within 30 light-years. Voss watched the projections unfold like ghostly stars across the tactical screen. "They will try to isolate us," the AI said calmly. "Divide us from Earth Command, then overwhelm us with numbers or interference." Voss nodded. Let them try. Days passed, then came the invitation. A diplomatic summit on neutral ground, in the shadow of the dying red giant. Neurosis. A symbolic meeting. Peaceful. To honor unity, the message claimed. Voss read the invitation and smiled without humor. The galaxy had made its move. Now it was her turn. The Dauntless accepted and set a slow course to Neurosis. On board her. Crew prepared in quiet precision. No speeches, no panic. They had trained for this. Deep within the ship, systems hummed to life some that had never been activated before. Protocol event glass was armed. Internal gravitic folding shields pulsed, like a heartbeat. And the weapon core, the same that had wiped out a simulated planet, began cycling its quantum capacitors in complete silence. Duh. As the Dauntless entered the orbit of the summit station, nothing seemed unusual. Dozens of ships floated nearby, some official, others simply security escorts. The station welcomed them with open channels and friendly voices. And yet as they docked, every crew member on the Dauntless felt it. Tension. The quiet before a storm. Then, during the scheduled welcome speech, the traps sprang. The station's power grid failed for 3.2 seconds, long enough for every defense field to drop, long enough for a fleet of cloaked ships to emerge from behind. The nearby asteroid belt, weapons armed, targeting systems locked. But the Dauntless didn't flinch. Commander Voss stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the display, as over 100 warships surrounded them, ships from multiple empires working together. Their leaders thought they could force a surrender. If they all struck at once, perhaps the Dauntless would finally show weakness. "This is a containment action," came the voice of Admiral Krell across an open channel. "You will power down and submit to full inspection. Face consequence." Voss didn't answer right away. She turned to her crew. "Final readiness check," she said. Each officer gave a quiet nod. Then she faced the screen and replied, "No." The fleet began to lock on. Weapons heated. Some ships charged EMP lances. Others prepared gravity mines. But before a single shot was fired, the Dauntless activated event glass. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't a pulse. It was ... absence. Reality near the ship twisted, bent slightly, like heat over a flame. Then silence. When sensors returned 2 seconds later, the battlefield had changed. Every attacking ship was still there, but frozen, not disabled. Stopped in time, their weapons were still charging, crew caught mid-motion. An entire fleet paused like a painting. The Dauntless drifted among them untouched, alone in the silence. Voss stood calmly as her crew watched in awe. "We warned them," she said quietly. "We never wanted a war." In orbit around Neurosis, the frozen fleet remained locked in stasis, a silent monument to what the Dauntless could do, by destroying but by refusing to play their game. Earth had sent a warship not to fight, but to end the need for fighting, but the galaxy had misunderstood. Now, they would understand completely. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. News of the stasis-locked fleet spread like wildfire through every system, from the farthest mining colonies to the shining halls of the core worlds. No one could explain it. No weapons were fired, no explosions seen. Yet an entire multi-species attack force had been stopped in a blink, frozen in place, untouched but completely helpless. Scientists ran theories, military councils panicked, and leaders demanded answers. But only one ship, one commander, and one world held those answers. The Dauntless returned to Earth without ceremony. Commander Alara Voss gave no interviews. The Terran Defense Council released no statements. Humanity simply stepped back into silence, leaving the galaxy to stare at the image of frozen ships drifting in orbit around a dying star. But silence wasn't enough. The Tri-Council of Empires sent envoys, some begging for understanding, others warning of escalation. They demanded to know what weapon Earth had used, how it worked, whether more existed. Earth responded with a single message, short and calm. There is no threat unless one is made. That line echoed across 1,000 planets, etched into memory and history both. Weeks passed. Quiet returned. But it wasn't peace. It was hesitation. No empire wanted to admit fear, but none dared challenge Earth again. For the first time, humanity stood not as the weakest, but as something unknown, something the galaxy didn't know how to categorize. And in the midst of that uncertainty, Earth made its final move. The Terran Unity Council called for a new gathering, this time not in someone else's territory, but in Earth orbit, aboard a station called Pax Astra, Representatives from every major species were invited, even those who had silently supported the failed attack. No threats, no conditions. Just an open message. Come speak. Let's decide what future we all want to live in. Many doubted, many hesitated, but they came. The Lorati, cautious but curious. The Zarnathi, full of pride but visibly shaken. The Drellans, hiding fear behind formal language. Even the neutral traders of the Tothan hive sent watchers. They arrived to find no fleets, no armed guards, just a clean, open hull overlooking the blue curve of Earth. Their commander Voss spoke not with weapons, not with warnings, but with vision. She explained what the Dauntless was truly built for, not to destroy, but to end conflict before it began. Wasn't just a gun, it was a message. A demonstration of what humanity had chosen to build after centuries of war. Power not to dominate, but to prevent another galaxy-wide arms race. To give every species one last chance to turn away from destruction. She didn't hide the truth, yes. Earth had developed the technology in secret. Yes, more ships like the Dauntless existed, but none had fired. None would, unless forced. We don't want to rule, Voss said clearly. We want to end the cycle. We joined your war games not to show off, but to show you what's possible when war is no longer needed. The room was quiet, no cheers, no applause, just stunned silence. Then questions began, careful, cautious ones. Could Earth help others stabilize regions on the brink of war? Could Dauntless-class vessels serve as peacekeeping guardians in lawless sectors? Could humanity share parts of its techs, aifully wisely with trusted allies? Voss didn't answer. Everything, but she made one thing clear. Humanity would not lead by force. They would offer partnership, support, a different way forward. One by one, the envoys responded. Some with skepticism, some with interest, a few with hope. And something changed that day, not instantly, not completely, but something shifted in the minds of those who had come expecting threats and found vision instead. The galaxy began to reconsider what it meant for humanity to rise not as conquerors, but as a stabilizing force in a chaotic cosmos. The frozen fleet remained untouched, a reminder that destruction was no longer necessary to prove power. The Dauntless returned to silent patrol in deep space, a single ship casting a long shadow over the future. From that day on, no one laughed at Earth's weak warships again. They listened.